So I think actually just then you just touched on a really interesting point, which is about people collaborating with competitors in a way that never used to happen in the past. And obviously some really interesting examples coming out of Young Henry already. Might be interesting to hear from all of you as to how that's sort of, whether it's played a part in what you guys have been doing and in what ways.
So for impact investing, because it's such a small ecosystem, it's grown over the past 4 years, but it's still niche in a lot of ways. It's been incredibly important for us to collaborate with others. Also, in the venture capital space, typically we wouldn't want to just be the only investors into a business. And taking the example of Sendle and Your Grocer, we're not. So we've worked with 2 other venture capital firms in Sendle, and another venture capital firm in Your Grocer. So it is a collaborative, first of all, impact investing is quite collaborative because it's all new, and venture capital is quite collaborative just because of the nature of the business.
I think for Lush, there's kind of 2 areas of collaboration. So when we see that we have the opportunity to change an ingredient, for example, so many years ago we were using a lot of glitter in our products because we are a glittery business, and we realized that glitter is really harming the waterways and obviously fish and that sort of thing. So we invented a plastic-free glitter made out of agar-agar or synthetic mica. And we didn't patent it because we want other cosmetics companies to be able to use that formulation to also not harm the environment and our waterways. So we are so open to that sort of thing. We've done the same thing with our palm-free soap base as well. So we've created a palm oil-free soap base and haven't patented it because we want other cosmetics businesses to do the same. And I guess, that's the ingredient side of it. And then the other side of it is that we really want to see other beauty and cosmetics companies challenging the norms of beauty. We don't want to be the only company using our staff in our windows or not photoshopping people. So we open that up, and we would be more than willing to share case studies of, how that's worked for us and bring other cosmetic companies on board to that style of marketing as well.
That's great.
Collaboration is a huge part of what we do. It's for us at a top level. It's so much more interesting if interesting things come out of sitting down and having a beer with somebody, which is kind of how everything for us starts. And then from those relationships, I think we try and just be part of our community, which is everything from collaborating with local farmers to come and pick up our spent grain and take it out for their cattle feed, which on one occasion has then meant bringing the cattle back to the brewery, butchering it and cooking it up and serving it with some matched beers. So it's this weird kind of circle of life. But then also, on a kind of more ongoing level, collaborating with musicians who are definitely, everyone almost who works for Young Henrys is a musician or an artist. So that's our community, and I think those people, artists, are some of the best at collaborating. So we try and take a few cues from that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. And so it's actually funny because we were talking earlier about the audience generally here at Purpose. It's kind of like a combination, and please correct me later if somebody grabs the microphone later if I'm wrong, but I think we were saying it's kind of corporates and corporate refugees, and I think all of us have had some kind of corporate background that was a lot less purpose focused than what we're doing now. And as millennials, we've all made that sort of leap and a change in our lives that has allowed us to get closer to it. You had a brilliant mention of sort of what that light bulb moment was, but it'd be really interesting, I think, for people who are trying to decide what's next, whether it was a light bulb moment or what that shaped it for you.
I don't think it was one light bulb moment. I think it's something that happens progressively. I think for me, it was just this. At first, it was I guess it was denial, actually. I'll tell a very honest story. I went to a conference years ago called Global Shifts, and that was where I got to know the Small Giants guys really well. And I was so, it had a feeling like this. It was in Melbourne, and I was so inspired. And at the end of the day, I was sitting down for a beer at a bar, and I was reflecting on the day. And in one of the sessions, they asked you to write down what makes you come alive, okay? So I challenge all of you guys to write down what makes you come alive, because I don't think it's something that we think about enough. And I was sitting on this bar stool, and I wrote down, I couldn't work it out basically, and then I just wrote down how I felt, and I felt dead. I wrote down dead. And then all of a sudden, I shit you not, I fainted, and I fell off the bar stool, and I woke up on the ground, and it was. So that was a massive light bulb moment for me, and I guess it took my I was really ignoring my inner compass quite a lot, and I guess I don't even know what I need to add to that other than you gotta don't waste your time. Work out what you really want and spend your time doing that. Yeah, I don't know if that answered the question at all, but there you go.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, so I came from agency side, so I guess anyone that has potentially worked agency side in quite a commercial space, it's pretty cutthroat. I lasted all of a year. And yeah, I mean, I guess I looked after some pretty cool brands, like the One Direction fragrance launch. Woo! But yeah, I guess you just realise that it's just so fickle, and and I'm passionate about human rights, and so to be able to work for a business that is also beautiful and lovely and smells glorious, but campaigns for human rights is something that I just feel really proud of. Makes me want to get up and come to work, and yeah.
I definitely came from the dark side of advertising.
We all did. Well, some of us did.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess I feel like I've found a home, and I think like Will, it wasn't really a light bulb moment, or that was a light bulb moment. But for me, it wasn't a light bulb moment. It's just kind of this weird, meandering kind of path of jumping around from different things. Always kind of being the guy in the room that is talking about the fluffy, feel good stuff, and with this ad campaign, why can't we, do something that's not about the money? And as you get higher up, that gets harder and harder to be that guy. And so I think what's really refreshing for me at Young Henry's is, and what I've kind of seen is that you don't have to be. We make beer. We're not all about social impact. We make beer. We want to have a good time. We're a really young company, so we're not world leaders in social impact, and we kind of don't pretend to be. But we just do a whole bunch of little things that are. Can be summed up as just taking responsibility for the shit that you put out into the world. It's not all good. We throw away some, we create rubbish, we create stuff that isn't great for the environment, but we always try and take responsibility for that. And I think, that's easy for any company to do. So yeah.
I wish they all did. Yeah, I think it's sort of really interesting points as to how everyone's ended up there. And I suppose, that's part of the employee side and employer side, how people have ended up there. I suppose with millennials forming, I think, pretty much all of the businesses, being a great part of all of the businesses. And obviously, there being that stat from earlier on of 46% of millennials are planning their career breakup. What are the key things, do you think, that keep people really engaged at each of your companies? I'll start with you, Andy, just because it seems like shake it up.
So I don't have the luxury of sitting here formulating my answer while everyone else does.
Sorry. Just thought give Will a break.
Yeah. So how do we keep our employees engaged?
Yeah, like what do you think? I mean, I think each one of the businesses have their own unusual things, but what do you think are the sort of 2 key reasons why people stay at Young Henry's?
Free beer. Yeah, I think, it's because everybody that is hired at Young Henry's has the same kind of ethos. And I think that's kind of probably another key difference for the business is that, you can't just start out doing whatever you want and hiring, at random, or, not hiring people that think, have similar values to you, and then retrofit that. You can't, that doesn't really work. So I think the reason why it has worked is because, and people have stayed, is because everyone that works at Young Henry's and has worked at Young Henry's all have a similar outlook on the world and value similar things. It's the only company that I've ever worked for, and there's 45 people working for us now, where, I'd want to sit down and have a beer with every single one of them. So that's really unique.
There's lots to be said for that.
Yeah. So Lush, every year we do an engagement survey where we ask the staff, all those sorts of questions. What makes you stay? What makes you want to leave? Why have you stayed so long? All that sort of thing. And the biggest reason that people stay with Lush is because of the values. And I think in all of the values that we have as a business, there's something that everyone can align to, whether for me it's human rights, for other people it's fighting against animal testing, for other people it's purely coming to work and feeling really accepted on the shop floor, for exactly who they are. And so that's a really important thing, and it's definitely the values that keep people around. And I think what's really important for us is when, we do need people to stay around, and we really value our people, and we show them that we value them by bringing them out to managers meetings 3 or 4 times a year. They're all part of an awesome bonus scheme as a profit share program, so we pay our people really well, and we show them that we value them, and we also ask them for feedback because we want to know what we should be doing, and that makes people feel valued on top of all of the key ethical pillars that we focus on as well. But we've had people in the business. Peter's been in the business 16 years. We've had store managers in the business for 12 years, and having retail store managers see retailing as a career is an awesome thing that we have going on at Lush that I haven't seen in any other retailer that I've worked for. So
it's great.
I think one of the big reasons is that predominantly the people in our team are just not happy with the status quo, and they want to help build something that that they feel is of service to the world. Government can, has a role to play. Philanthropy has a role to play. We see businesses having a role to play in having a positive impact on the world. And I guess, like these guys, it's really incredible to find people where there's a match in ethos and values, but I think we all feel like we're doing something, albeit quite idealistically and maybe even naively, that we can actually bring about some sort of societal change. And I guess that comes back to your point about collaboration. We see ourselves as one part of the cog. What we do influences others. Like ideally, what we do influences other fund managers. Fund managers don't care about impact. They're starting to care about impact because the consumers are moving their dollars. They're moving from a standard super fund into Australian ethical. And as soon as you see money change hands, it changes behaviour. So yeah, I think that higher purpose is something that ties our team together, and that's really important. In startups, things are challenging. Big corporates have their pros. They're stable. Generally, unless you get made redundant. But there's security. Whereas in a startup, it's all fresh and new. There's always problems and fires to fight. Yeah.
Tell me about it. The Guardian set up here as a startup in effect, so yeah, we've had a fair share. Sorry. I
thought of one other thing while Will was talking there. I don't think it's easy as a startup as well. I think with millennials and looking at other startups, the ones that have now made it and are no longer startups like Google, and kind of go, oh yeah, we need to be something like that. in order to reach that level of success. But I think what we've tried to avoid is becoming a cult. Everyone that works for Young Henrys has something else going on, whether it's playing in a band or having a young family, or something that takes their time and brings something interesting to the conversation and to the table within the organisation.
But has everyone got beards? Sorry, I'm just playing. Just a question, because obviously we're covering off consumers, we're covering off workers, and we're covering off the employee side of things. I'm sorry, I've just done that. Consumers, employees, investors. That's why I'm coming to you. So from an investment point of view, I suppose there are probably people here today who are thinking of setting something up or have set something up and will be seeking investment, and obviously probably coming to you guys for that impact investment fund. So what are the key credentials or criteria you look for to really appeal to the millennial audience, but also to make sure that you're covering what you want to be doing from a business point of view?
Okay. If anyone has a startup and
pitch, go.
Yeah, we'd love to talk to you guys. Not just me. These two wonderful ladies here down the front, and Adam, who's hiding out the back there, wants to talk to you as well. What we're looking for is businesses that have impact embedded within their operating model. What that means, we'll use Who Gives a Crap as an example. So they take textbooks that would have gone to landfill and turn it into toilet paper. So for us, that is the impact. Instead of more landfill, we've got recycled toilet paper, better than virgin toilet paper. So I'll go back to, what are some other examples? The Boreo guys, where they take fishing nets and turn it into a consumer product. Again, we love those sorts of products. Anything in the ed tech, health tech space. So we're looking for high growth companies, unashamedly. So we need to see potential to make multiples on our dollars from investments. We're not looking to invest in just ideas. We want to invest in businesses. So you need to have some revenues rather than just a single founder working out of their mum and dad's shed. We want a team, and we want to be able to find people who we can work with. There was a slide I had up there with a whole bunch of faces. So we've got some incredible entrepreneurs, some of the most successful founders in Australia, who are willing to spend their time and energy and resources to help our startups succeed. Brilliant.
And so I'll just ask you guys one more question before we open up to questions from the floor. But I think we were chatting earlier about sort of the light bulb moment, or the moment that sort of made you realise that perhaps you wanted to change something. But what's the best piece of advice you've received along the way that's helped shape your decision making?
Do you want to start?
I can start.
Yeah.
So the best sort of advice that I think we got as a business was, if something was not a fuck yes when you looked at it, don't do it, because it's clearly a fuck no. So that was the biggest thing. So whenever we look at anything now, whether it's a hire or a campaign or a store location that we're looking at, if it's not a fuck yes, it's a fuck no.
Love it. Go on, Andy.
So is this about for the business to succeed, or per individual?
Either or. I think just we want people to walk away from this session with something, taking away actionable insights or things that they've learned. So if there's been something that's helped shape what you've done or what your business has done, then that's probably something useful to impart.
I think it comes back to what I said before around networking and just giving to your network. So not just reaching out and saying, hey, can I have a coffee? But understanding the person that you're contacting and why you're contacting them, and really making it about them rather than about you. Offering something to them that is of value. The other thing, I think once you get to a stage where people are starting to ask you for coffees, then take the coffees. I think you've got to give back. Once you've established a network and you have something to offer, you should be giving back. And making introductions. I think it's critical to help the ecosystem around you grow without you. But whenever you're making email introductions, always ask the two people beforehand whether they're happy to be introduced. It's just good introduction etiquette
Have you
to
had
save everyone's time.
Have you had a time where that you
Possibly.
didn't do that? It's like that's like the sound
it's
of
happened
somebody
both
who's been
ways.
scarred.
I think don't believe your own hype. Also, I think just don't be these are bits of advice I think we've received over the last few years. Don't be the negative energy in your business. It's really easy to be a downer about, I think, thinking of how you build on what other people are bringing to the table rather than kind of shutting ideas down. And finding time to turn your phone off. It's crazy, even looking around the room in the last session, how many people are on their phones. And I think it's something that I've realized coming from being a digital strategist, but just taking that time out, whenever it is, if it's like an hour over the dinner table with your family, or while you're pouring at a beer festival or whatever it is, that time with uninterrupted human interaction is just like the most inspiring thing.
Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? Because it's like the millennial generation is the hyper-connected generation, but also the generation that loves experiences more than any other and value it, and then have to get photographs of every single moment of when they are actually living. And yeah, I think it's something that it's interesting hearing you say, we're not hyper-connected from a social point of view. I think there's lots of brands that would feel like that's a bit nerve-wracking to do that, because we have to be hyper-connected because we have to do what the millennials, our audience, are doing. So I think we've got some roving mics around. There's one there.
There's one down there.
Excellent. Have we got questions? No questions. Okay, excellent. There's one here. Oh, sorry. There's one on its way to you. Won't be a minute. It's actually quite a big room, isn't it? It's a long way to go. Ooh.
Hi.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not sure if I've been thinking about how I'm going to phrase this question, and I'm not sure. So all of you have come from working for different types of companies before. If you were still in that role and advising a big corporate, knowing that millennials are going to make up a lot of their market and people that want to buy their products, what would you be telling a big corporate that maybe isn't purpose-driven, what they should be thinking about in maybe changing their business models or the way that they should work?
I think it depends definitely on the organisation and the brand, but I would always say to look inside first. Talk to your staff, find out what's really important to them, because there's no point in pushing some sort of values-led agenda without knowing what actually resonates with people internally. So I think you'd have to start with some research internally and find out what's important to people, and then create content around that by asking for feedback from your people.
I think that's a great answer. I don't really have anything to add.
Anything, Andy?
Well, again, the difference, because coming from that world with Young Henrys, is that sometimes we don't ask for anything in return. Definitely not from our customers. Enjoy the beer, don't ask for anything in return. That's it. If they're stoked, then you've done your job and you don't need to get anything else back. But I think as well, that coming back to the metrics of high fives and people that are stoked on your brand. If you've got that, then I think you're doing something right. And sometimes, I think a lot of the time, especially with millennials, you can't actually measure, and you shouldn't try to measure everything. Like, it just, sometimes you've just got to trust that you're doing the right thing, and it's going to come back around somehow, some way in the future.
Yeah. I think I just add to that. I think understanding more about the audience. So, Natasha was talking earlier about all the different touch points they've got with the millennial audience. So they've got touch points internally, the employees, but also the consumers. So there's all these different opportunities for people to feed back. So if you're trying to persuade people internally that it's really important to think about purpose, or to think about sharing the values of your consumer, ask your consumer what their values are, because that's when you can get a true sense of it. You've got the research that proves that it's important, and then that's when you can begin to take actions on it. Because whilst it's nice to live in a world without metrics, from my experience, a lot of the time and a lot of the brands that we deal with, you don't get that luxury. They need to have hard and fast numbers.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, I think financially, like, we still look at financials. So I
Yeah.
don't want to come across as like the hippie, but I think it's not the first question that we ask. So when we come to the table with somebody around an idea, the first question is never, does this make financial sense? We kind of, if it's a great idea, we figure that out afterwards.
Yeah. I think there was a question here, if that's answered it. There's one there, yeah.
Thanks. My question's kind of the other side of that coin, actually. How do you protect against the values-led business movement from being maybe co-opted by big corporations who might not have the same ethos but want the marketing, I guess, angle, knowing that millennials are drawn to businesses with values?
So,
If that makes sense, maybe?
so is it trying to ensure that you've safeguarded against other businesses when you are a value-led business?
Yeah, more so just broadly. Do you see that as an issue, and how would you safeguard, I guess, businesses with a true purpose from, I guess, just being kind of co-opted by corporations who want to cash in on the movement of millennials being drawn to businesses with values?
I think it's a really good place for you to start, actually.
I think you just got to do your due diligence. It's going to happen, isn't it? Like, people are going to get on the bandwagon. That's natural. But I guess I have got a lot of confidence in people doing their research, and I think it was Andy. Like, don't trust a business in what they say about themselves. Trust people who deal with that business. Same with anything. Yeah, just do your reference checks to get a feel for things. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, I also think people can look at what you're doing and just so easily call bullshit if it's not authentic and not coming from, an actual real place. People know, and that is so brand damaging. So I think, tacking on CSR is what you see a lot in the corporate world, but I do think that we have so much access to information, and more than we've ever had before, and I think people do a lot more research now as well, so I think it's really, it can be quite easy to tell, who is actually truly working in a space and making social impact versus maybe who's just saying they are, or tacking on their little charity thing on the side, and I think people know. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think you can fake it. So I wouldn't really be concerned about businesses trying to seem like they're part of the value space. Throwing money at a problem, I think, is these days, especially with like this millennial generation. It's like 20 years of people, but I think people see through that, even outside of that generation these days. I don't think it's really a big problem.
Yeah, and I think millennials are generally better informed, so that's the whole thing, right? This is digital savvy generation, people who grew up with the internet, and they just will research it. So that cool bullshit, or whatever you want to call it, ultimately, people can find out the information for themselves, and they probably will do. So most of the time, the truth will out. And certainly, when I give the example about The Guardian and the membership now, we've got lots of people who have paywalls in publishing, and they're like, do it this way. And then we've got an audience for The Guardian who are like, we trust you enough on the basis of what we know from you that actually we're going to pay just because we want to, just because we feel like it's important to sustain you. And I think that just shows the difference in actually having something that's very, very true, that people can trust and believe in, to something that's sort of spouted here and there. Questions over there?
Hey, so my question is, we've just witnessed Trump turn out millennials like almost no other, I think almost beating Obama. What have you all sat back as marketers and working in this space and gone, what can I take from Trump that can be successful in turning and working with millennials going forward? You're welcome.
I'll just kick that off. Actually, if you look, millennials, obviously different areas. So Trump's entire campaign worked in a particular area, and it worked in listening where perhaps the other people weren't. And I think, you know, that's a big learning. So actually, if you look at anything marketing at the moment, there's quite a lot of what can everybody learn from Trump. And it's people want to be heard, and millennials want to be heard more than anybody else. So if you're not listening, and I'm not sure that the Clinton world was, I mean, they weren't even traveling to a lot of those areas that Trump did cover off. She didn't let them be heard. So I think there's a way of viewing it as pay attention and go and have that conversation, which is what we've learned from some people today.
Yeah, for me, I think it shows that we all have blind spots. And yeah, we need to listen because they're always there. Doesn't matter how successful something looks from the outside. You're always going to have to keep listening.
Yeah, I think something I personally learned is that I'm in a Facebook algorithm bubble of all this like fluffy niceness that's all, you know, yay marriage equality and yay human rights and all these awesome things. And then I realized that I'm not consuming any news other than the news that I want to consume. So it was a real surprise to me that Trump was elected, and I think it was probably a real surprise to everyone who I'm friends with on social channels, especially Facebook. So I think, blind spot massively. I need to follow lots of other, news and consume lots of other news so that I have both sides of the coin to actually know what's realistically going on, not what I hope or want to think is going on. So, yeah.
I think, unfortunately, because Trump is a real dick, that was people calling bullshit. You know, like they're calling bullshit against the options that they've got on the table. It's like, well, if you give me these two people, I'm going to go fuck you and vote for Trump, because you know there's so much wrong. And I think the same thing is happening in Australia. There's so much wrong with that whole institution of politics, and so millennials just, you know, in the UK they're kind of, you know, you've got
Brexit.
Yeah, and people just, you know, deciding not to vote. And in the US, people voting for someone like Trump, and then, you know, here's, I guess, what's his space in Australia.
It's all very encouraging, isn't it? We've got one at the back there. Oh, sorry. Come there next.
So there's this idea that there are enough jobs, values-driven jobs for millennials, is clearly bullshit, right? Like, there just isn't enough jobs of that nature. So what I'm kind of curious to hear about from the panel is, you know, if millennials are in favour of authenticity and truthfulness and are well-researched and actually understand what's going on in the world, they're also not being sold on this lie that there are enough values-driven jobs out there for all of them. So how do you deal with that in the nature of your business, also understanding what that means for the marketplace overall?
It's an interesting question because two of these already are very, very impact sort of led businesses. But yeah, so do you want to start?
I guess the point of Giant Leap is that there's capital there for founders of existing businesses that have values embedded within them, but there's also capital there for new founders. Like, the whole idea of it is to demonstrate that there is infrastructure for people to go out and build businesses that fit their values and have a positive impact on the world and provide jobs for others. So I guess it's a call to action for people to take action, not just hope that a job will appear.
I think for Lush, over Christmas in Australia and New Zealand, we'll be employing about 1,200 people across retail and manufacturing. So, we do have a lot of opportunity, but we've also got a lot of global opportunity. And so what we see is a lot of people moving, across the world for different Lush careers or different Lush jobs. But the other thing that we do is, as a business, is we really empower our staff as business managers. And I guess, we know that people are eventually going to move on. And what we hope is that we can foster, an ethical business mindset that will enable them to go on and create their own businesses, and we can support them in their businesses as well. And I think a lot of millennials want to create their own opportunities as well. And if they can't find a business that they're aligned to, I feel like we'll probably just go out and start our own business, which seems to be happening quite a lot anyway.
Do you want to add anything?
I have a lot of respect for the social enterprise space, like, companies like Who Gives a Crap, who are actually founding their business on, something that isn't just inherently doing good. That's something that's sustainable. I just think, on a slight kind of tangent, we've become so politically correct, and we're sort of so focused on everything having to be about doing good that I think people are separating the two rather than looking at what you can do in your everyday business that is still about having fun and and being exciting, which I think Who Gives a Crap and there's a whole bunch of businesses that do that have a much bigger social impact than Young Henry's. But I think Young Henry's it's almost the example of, it doesn't matter how small you are or how little money you've got or what industry you're in. You don't have to be, identified. You'll have, I'm a values-driven business nailed to your front door. It's just about being responsible for what you're putting out into the world.
Yeah, I think that's true. And it's like, this is about millennials and searching for meaning, and meaning can be found in so many different ways. And, I saw the Unilever CEO speak last week, and they changed an entire business. And I know that needs to come from the top, but they've changed an entire business from being very far in the pollutant, really bad space, and they are shifting, and they've already made probably some of the biggest changes of a big business globally. The change can happen from within in many places. It does need to have that support from the top. But as more comes out in the likes of the Deloitte studies showing how much more likely you're going to be to retain your staff if you're doing good, then I think that continues to make an impact. So it may not be a values-led job that you can jump to, but you can actually make a difference in the organisation you're already in. We've actually run out of time. Just so that we do all walk away with hopefully something that's of value. It'd be amazing if everyone just turn to the person next to them, just say like the top thing that they feel like they're going to take away today, and just share that for like 20, 30 seconds, and then I'll wrap up in a sec. I'm not going to stop for any longer. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming, and to thank our speakers, Andy, Natasha, and Will. Thank you so much.